Spectre on site. Studio transmission incoming. No words. No warning. Just carnage.
Let's get this done.
Sensor going live.
Lights out. Seraph liquidated.
Providing cover.
Launching Hawk.
Wetworks on site.
Moving to flank. Going loud.
They may defend against a single blade. Against the Flood, not so much.
Let's do this.
Supply drop incoming.
You know me. I don't like anyone.
Spectre reporting. Contract complete.
Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm John Raffis, and welcome to Treyarch. Tomorrow marks the end of entertaining our inner heist fantasy and the beginning of unleashing our inner assassins with the beginning of Operation Spectre Rising, first on PlayStation. So earlier today and at the top of the show, you saw the official gameplay trailer for Operation Spectre Rising. As we speak, my colleagues Foxy and Ben are pushing the buttons of their magical social media machine to take a Treyarch blog post live that shares this. There's a roadmap that outlines what is happening during Operation Spectre Rising this week, and featuring the rest of the content we aim to take live throughout the rest of the operation. And there's a lot to cover, a lot across multiplayer, Blackout, Zombies, new content coming to the black market, as well as Call of Duty Days of Summer. So to kick things off and help us dive into all things multiplayer, we are joined today by Miles Leslie, producer, Matt Scronce, senior game designer. How you doing, guys?
Great to see you, John.
All right. So a lot to cover. Operation Spectre Rising clearly revolves around Spectre.
I think.
That was the
I'm
one.
not
That
sure.
was the one.
Yeah.
So why don't we start there? Tell us about Spectre and the debut in Black Ops 4.
So Spectre's back. We took a look at Spectre's kit, kind of honed in on what made Spectre special, which is that really awesome melee specialist. And we said, what can we do to make that just a even more amazing experience? And we came away with creating a fully third-person experience for Spectre's special weaponry, which is the Shadow Blade. The Shadow Blade allows Spectre to, like I said, go into full third person while you're Shadow Blade is out, you also have access to, you will not be able to go prone or change stances, but when you do press the change stance button, you'll be able to perform a really awesome multi-directional roll, which is a ton of fun, and pairs really well with the Shadow Blade melee weapon, because when you bring a knife to a gunfight, it's, you know, not always advised, but with the Shadow Blade and pairing with the multi-directional roll, you're going to be able to pull off some really badass maneuvers and dodge some bullets and hopefully go in for the kill.
Well, and to demonstrate that multi-directional roll, you brought Miles with you today.
I did. Let's see it.
Yeah.
So
Okay, there we go.
Does this? How much does this stage support?
Clear the room. Clear the room.
So with the Shadow Blade, with the smoke grenade, because there's some interesting elements to how Spectre uses that grenade. When it comes to that third-person point of view, how did that impact design? Like, how did the team approach this, both in terms of sort of design for the specialist, in terms of thinking about how that plays well in maps and plays well with others? Tell us about that design journey.
Well, you know, third person creates some obvious visibility benefits, and we embrace that. So you're going to be able to kind of, as you make your way around the map, you're going to have a wider field of view just to be able to see your surroundings. You mentioned Spectre's smoke grenade, so that is Spectre's special issue equipment, and it's not just any smoke grenade. We took a look at the smoke grenade, and you know, traditionally that's going to impact enemy and friendly visibility. So in looking at how to deal with that on the Spectre side, Spectre will have the unique ability to see both teammates and enemies who are inside of that smoke grenade. Enemies will be highlighted in kind of a white, while friendlies will be highlighted with a blue. So you want to pair that with your Shadow Blade to be able to block off the lines of sight for your enemies, and then use that and maneuver around to enter that smoke and use the Shadow Blade to take out those enemies.
The comboing is pretty interesting now, right? As you play like hardpoint or control or domination, is if you can combo where you're throwing the smoke and you get in there with the blade and you just start cutting people down, like Matt said, you feel like that badass, but it also is really scary when that smoke comes now out, because you're like, okay, Spectre's out, what do I need to do here? How do I counter this? So it has a change to how you play if you're Spectre, but also how the team responds as well, which has a huge impact across all the maps in terms of how they play and how to approach those things if Spectre's out on the map.
Since we're talking about the Shadow Blade and the smoke grenade, probably a good opportunity to kind of pivot and talk about some of the new weapons in the mix. New melee weapon, new LMG in the mix?
Yes, absolutely. So the new LMG is the Tiger Shark. It's kind of a more agile LMG, super fun to use. So someone like myself who I'm traditionally a run and gunner, I don't mind using the Tiger Shark because it allows me to stay with that run and gun playstyle. Like I said, it's a bit more agile. It's got I think the fastest reload speed of all of our LMGs. So we'll be able to use that in kind of a new role for LMGs. And that's just been a ton of fun. And then the melee weapon, which I believe, I'm going to mess this up.
Do it.
Nifo Oti, I believe. I don't
Close
know.
enough.
Close? Okay. It's a melee weapon, a club. It looks badass. It's a lethal melee weapon. I've also had a ton of fun using that bad boy, going around and making our fellow developers squill in excitement, I guess you could say. Yeah.
Nice. There's a story there. We'll save that for another time. All right. We'll have a couple new multiplayer maps that come into the fold as well. Before we get there, though, because we'll sort of walk through each one. The end of this week, if I'm not mistaken, Prop Hunt makes a return and goes live.
Prop Hunt. Again, one of our favorite game modes. We've brought it back bigger and better than ever for Black Ops 4. There you can see
Live out all of your fantasies as random things.
That's actually Miles, the trash can.
I actually have a costume at home where I just try to become the trash can. So.
Yeah, so Prop Hunt, if you don't know what it is, and you've been living under or as a rock, I don't know.
I see what you
mean. We have to deal with this all day. It
pits a team of hunters against a team of props. And then each map will have their own specific prop set to cycle through. As a prop, you'll be able to change between props if you spawn in and you don't necessarily think you can hide as the one you've been given. You'll be able to do that a couple times. You'll be able to lay down decoys, and then to kind of help with the hunters, every 20 seconds the props will whistle in the world. So you want to crank your headphones up and listen for that whistle.
Yeah.
What's your favorite prop?
My favorite prop.
Going off script.
Well, it's fine.
There is no script.
I have always wanted to be a palm tree
Yeah?
since a young boy.
No, that's cool.
So it's fun to be able to live out my fantasy.
The best
as a
is
palm
when
tree.
these guys are picking this stuff in militia, you can be the bear, right? So
Yes.
there's like a stuffed bear, and so you get to just run around as the bear, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah,
So-
it's the people that have played the maps a lot and have put their time in are definitely going to have the advantage there, because you're going to look at that bear and say, hey,
Wait, yeah. Why is the bear in the middle of the forest? Hold on a second.
Why is the
here.
bear capturing B-Down?
What I appreciate here is just the amount of enthusiasm for prop hunt. I mean, to the point that I think I'm going to call some people and try to get you guys to star in your own prop hunt video.
Let's do it.
We already
Okay.
have everything we need.
The playtests I've for prop hunt internally in the studio, I think have elicited the most laughs that I've
yeah.
heard coming from
over the
everybody's
top.
offices. So it's just super fun.
Before we move on to the maps, one note that I kind of took out of order is, and something that we saw in the video, is the return of the ballistic knife. Coming later.
Yes, yeah. Ballistic knife, melee / long range weapon that you can hit a button and fire off that projectile. Yes, it is back, and we'll try to have some cool stuff planned for that guy as well.
Cool. All right, so let's move on to the maps. We've got a couple maps coming online here, and if I'm not mistaken, I think we've got Masquerade lined up first.
Yeah.
And Miles, if you could tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about what's going on in the world of Masquerade.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got 3 brand new maps in this, in Spectre Rising, which is different than the 2 we've had before. And we really wanted to look at the portfolio of maps that we've been delivering, and we've constantly been pushing ourselves to really deliver some really unique experiences, both visually and gameplay-wise. So talking about Masquerade, which we're looking at some gameplay here, we really wanted to smash together this idea of this colorful parade float that's going on, and it's actually being used to smash and crack open this U.S. embassy. So this takes place in Bangladesh, India, so you get this contrast of the outside world and this compound that is the U.S. embassy. So it has really high, cool visuals, a lot of colorful things, but you actually get to engage with the floats. So you can get on a bunch of them, like there's a huge boat that has a shark with a shark captain on it, which is pretty fun. And you're using these in really interesting ways that you haven't been able to, is actually engage with the environment. And the map has very separated lines when you're in the embassy and out of the embassy, which is really awesome, because the outside street area leading up to the floats is more cat and mouse, and then you've got this contrast of this long street that's wide open, so there's danger, but you can use the floats in creative ways, getting into what we're calling the VIP building in front of the embassy. And if you lock that down, you're going to have a clear advantage. And we really wanted to see and push ourselves to say, look, if we just say this is a power position and you want to go get it, what gameplay does that drive? And what we found is it adds more interest. It drives that more engagement in terms of internally, look, hey, I want to go take that building. How do I take it? I want to get around this street. I want to use this float in really creative ways. And then how do I use that equipment to make that stuff happen?
That was a lot of fun. Sorry to jump in, but on kind of my team's side of when we go through and say, where do we want the hard points to be? Where do we want the domination zones to be? Because like Miles said, it's a very different map to where you have these really distinct power positions. You have these lanes that kind of close and open in interesting ways. So that was a lot of fun for us to go through and play test and find what worked the best for this kind of new setup.
Yeah, this is all about, we really wanted to push where people, there's a clear advantage, right? You get into these windows that we're looking at here that overlook the embassy, the VIP building, and drive people to want to take these, right? You can still run and gun, but if you're going to be smart and try to use the equipment and everything that you've got in your arsenal, you're going to be able to lock down these different zones, and that was really compelling to us, on top of trying to use the environment even more.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, the Spectre brings something kind of so unique to the fray. How, if at all, did that impact any thinking around any of the new maps?
We've really been challenged as a studio and to wrap our minds around the operation themes. And we're talking about Spectre, who is world-class assassin, is how do you do that theming across the maps? And it's easier in some and harder than others, but it's always this layer of, what are the cool things that can influence us? And for us, we really had this interesting idea of, elite assassins have hijacked these floats and they're using as batting rams and they're cracking open this embassy, and it has that layer of it's fun, right? But also a serious tone of they are trying to attack this embassy in some interesting and new ways that we haven't done before.
Sure. All right. Map number 2,
Map
Artifact.
Number 2, Artifact, yeah. So Artifact is another super fun map. Once the gameplay comes up, you guys will see. So this was super fun for us because we started with this idea, and this contrasts to Masquerade, where we talked about platforming. We really wanted to have a platforming experience, and when I say platforming, it's really about being able to choose and jumping from different actual platforms, high and low. We wanted to create a sandbox of this, and going to Iceland where this takes place, and you've got this mashing of this beautiful landscape together with the green and the volcanic rock and the ice and the snow, allowed us to really embrace that. And this map has so many decisions. You can make so many quick decisions, going high, going low, jumping over enemies, getting behind enemies in really creative ways. It plays very, very different than any of the other maps because of those choices.
Well, it seems like when you talk about elevations, it continues to build upon some of the ideas that you had in Operation Grand Heist.
Absolutely. As we keep pushing ourselves, and we know we're onto something when we're playtesting, and it was like that felt very uncomfortable because it was different. Right? Like you can't have 3 platforms that you've jumped on to get over someone because we haven't done that. And the answer is, well, actually, we have to do that, right? Like we have to challenge ourselves more so than we have to try to bring something to the community. And we're excited to see how people respond to that, right? And what do they like, what do they not like? Because we are monitoring these things, and that's influencing where we should go and also what we should and should not do. But this map's super fun. It's also got some fun things. There's a working geyser. So there's geysers that actually go off during the match, and if you get stuck in them, you'll go hurling up in the sky, ragdolling, which is awesome. It also has a one-way ice slide. So this ice cave most of the map is pretty open with the platforming. The ice cave is pretty close quarters, and it has a lot of different flanks, but there's a way to use a one-way ice slide to get behind enemies, which is pretty cool because you have to commit. So it's all about, this map's about making decisions and committing to those decisions, and then try to, change lanes quickly and paths as fast as you can with the platforming.
When it comes to design meetings, walk me through, like, what does the geyser idea sound like? How does that come up? How does that happen?
Like anything, it is, wouldn't it be cool, right?
Wouldn't it be cool?
It's literally how it starts, is we're in this landscape, and the team has done such an amazing job where they are crafting these things. Man, it would be so cool if. And when you hear these things and you see how excited the team is, you're like, we have to do that, right? Like, let's put geysers in this. Like, that just makes sense. And you quickly prototype it, and you find out that it's fun, and you just iterate from there. And it's the same thing with the slide. Man, it'd be so cool if you could do this. Well, you know what? Let's do that, right? Let's embrace that feeling. And that's really allowed us to step out of our comfort zone and get out of the sort of guidelines and foundation that we've got to build on these maps.
The thing about this map that I always...
There's the guys right there.
This is really satisfying, the lethal bidet. In playtesting, I've found that this map, more so than maybe any other, is, and you can even see it here in the gameplay, is you can really play with any style that you want and be successful at it. It just comes down to those decisions that Miles mentioned. So if you're a sniper, you're going to be able to find that optimal path that will allow you to be successful as a sniper. If you're running a KN57, you're going to be able to find that path that helps you optimize that. Or if you're running, you happen to get the NIFO OT melee weapon, you're going to be able to do that as Jarrett in our playtest does with his melee weapon.
Yeah, I want to call out Jarrett specifically, who is a master at sneaking up behind you and knifing you.
Yeah.
And then after you respawn, will then snipe you. So I've really been...
Just both sides.
Yeah, just both sides you're getting it from Jarrett. So thanks, Jarrett.
Thank you, Jarrett.
Thank you. You've crafted me in the pits of hell. But to go real quick back to the theming of the assassination, the map's called Artifact, and what it is this archaeological group has actually been hired to find a zombie artifact. They don't know that it's a zombie artifact, they're just finding an artifact. It's actually the Odin statue from one of the zombie maps, which is really cool, and they start digging it out, but since the zombie artifacts obviously have, unearthly powers, some bad dudes try to stop them and assassinate them and wipe them out to steal it. A little Indiana Jones inspired, it's sort of treasure hunted.
Yeah.
It's kind of the idea, which is pretty cool.
I like it.
So then there is a third map in the mix. It is a reimagining of a fan favorite, WMD.
Yeah, so WMD is awesome. We really started to look at the portfolio and what we wanted to give back to fans. And this is another one where we could give more across the portfolio. So we still have the 2 brand new experiences, but WMD, because it's so old in terms of BO1, it still plays very different, and it has its own foundation. this map's about insane verticality and just complexity overall. So when we were looking at it, it complemented the openness and decisions of Artifact, the dichotomy between the embassy and the streets and Masquerade, and gave something new. We really wanted to lean in feeling cold, that your teeth would be chattering if you're in the Russian hidden laboratories that are cooking the Nova 6. But it's really fun because it's brought back a lot of memories for some of the team that was still playing, and seeing the new team members that didn't work on the original having a lot of fun on it and how it plays so different was pretty cool. We really wanted to lean into that insane verticality overall, because you got the gantry in the back area, all the different catwalks and roofs you can get on. There's a lot of outsmarting you can try to do, packed so close together that you feel like you can really, really outsmart enemies more so than you may have been able to do in some of the other maps that are bigger and wider and have those decisions spread out. There's a lot of decisions to be made in here.
As we kind of wind down sort of the multiplayer portion, what are you guys most excited about? What do you, personally, what are you most excited about in terms of Operation Spectre Rising? What are you looking forward to most?
Being a palm tree.
Boyhood dream. Yeah. No, I get that. I get that.
No, that's a hard one. I absolutely love prop hunt. I got to go with playing as Spectre. I really enjoy that close range gameplay, and it just feels. I wanted to curse there. I'm not going to. It feels amazing, John, to just roll through and slash people, and just to hear their overjoy through death chat.
Revenge.
That's my favorite. Spectre, playing a Spectre in where we allow you to play a Spectre. It's just a blast. Yeah.
For me, it's these maps really, I live and breathe the maps, and really trying to push ourselves in the team, and the really responded is I want to see how the community responds to these maps, how they're playing them. It even goes to some of the alt maps. We had Arsenal Sandstorm come out during the previous operation. We're going to have some more come in this. We are listening to the feedback, and we're really trying to change things to be more interesting and to be more fun. So the feedback is great, the constructive, positive feedback from the community that we want to lead into. But that's what I'm excited about, is how do people play this, right? How are they feeling about it? What are the things that we didn't experience that people experience? And really seeing all of that will be sort of the big thing for me and the team. So,
does WMD have the paths, the RCX?
It does have an RCX, sneaky RCX path. Yeah. It's also got some. It's got some other stuff too.
I was about to post a Reddit thread.
No Reddit threads just yet, hopefully. So it's got some other surprises too.
All right.
Cool. Well, guys, thank you very much for coming by.
Thanks, John.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Next, we will be moving on to Zombies with our lead writer, Craig Houston, and expert game designer, Mark Maestas. Before we do that, though, wanted to give you a sneak preview inside what we are planning on the declassified front next. As you know, over the last couple months, we've rolled out a video documentary series called Declassified. And we have taken a look at the ballistics of Blackout. We've taken a look at the history of Nuketown. We've looked at how a story is told through sound with our audio team. Next up, the effects team. Now, in the next couple weeks, we will release the full-length video documentary piece. However, this is a preview that takes a look inside of what the FX team does. When you talk about everything from sparks to fire to smoke to weather and dust particles, this is a team that brings those living, breathing elements into the game world to make it feel alive and make the gameplay environment feel, well, like there's motion. Here is a sneak peek into our next declassified FX.
When you talk about real-time effects, the effects are built to be seen in a video game and in real time, in comparison to a film where you're really looking at the effect from one perspective.
So some of the challenges that we're faced with as real-time effects artists is how do you construct effects knowing ahead of time that you can't account for all the situations that could occur. You need to be really smart in your processes and the management of your particle system.
When I'm working on an effect, I'm looking at it from all different kind of angles. I'm also understanding the context in which it'll be used. So we have a working level. And within that test level, we have different lighting states. So I would have to build an effect and look at it in that lighting state to know, okay, does this hold up? We have to make sure that we're building them in a way that will respond to different lighting conditions.
And that is a sneak peek at Declassified FX coming soon in the next couple of weeks. We will keep you posted. Next up, zombies. So while our last Zombies experience, Ancient Evil, was released a few weeks ago, we won't have a full experience yet for a little while, but that doesn't mean that the Zombies team isn't hard at work on a couple updates. With that, we have our lead writer, Craig Houston, and expert game designer, Mark Maestas, joining us to talk a little bit about what's in store on the Zombies front during this Operation Spectre Rising window. Mark, new to the stream, welcome. Is it everything that you dreamed it would be?
Yeah, I can feel all the adrenaline just surging into me right now.
That's weird. That's what it feels like when I soil myself. That's just it could be one or the other. A little column A, a little column B. You know.
I mean, Mark's been working on Zombies, pretty much since the beginning. The beginning. So he's used to living with oppressive, scary atmospheres. So he should be right at home.
Well, actually, as new guy to the stream, who are you? What is it that you say you do here?
What do I do here? No. I'm a designer. I've been working on campaign and zombies most of my career here.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's.
Mark really sells himself short. Amongst other things, Mark is one of the people that should actually get a lot of credit for things like the alchemical language that we had in the Chaos story, which
awesome.
was, took a smarter brain than mine to work it out. So that falls under narrative, but that was Mark.
All right. Well, let's dive into some of the new Zombies features that we'll see during Operation Spectre Rising. First, let's start with the Super Blood Wolf Moon Gauntlet.
Can you say that again?
Super Blood Wolf Moon Gauntlet.
Love that.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about this Gauntlet experience.
Well, this Gauntlet, I mean, we always try to make things that are new and challenging and interesting. And, this one's going to test your knowledge of quests, and it's going to be kind of like the phases of the moon. You'll be waxing and waning in power.
I've been doing that my whole career. I mean, shooting pool balls. I mean, that's pretty out there. Obviously, it's built around the Dead of the Night map, which is one of my personal favourites visually. With the mythical creatures and things that you've got in there. The Gauntlet really let Mark and his guys kind of play with those features in a very different way.
New challenge.
Yes.
Taking it up a notch.
Yes.
All right. Well, there's also an update with the classic Elixir Restock. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So one thing we found is that when you didn't have many elixirs to use, like of a particular kind, you tended not to use them because you're afraid of running out, and then you have an empty slot that's not doing anything. So it's a nice little bonus feature that if you run out, it will replace it with a random classic elixir. And this can happen too, like if you forget to change them out between games, and then you go into the game, you'll have something there, and it won't be just empty.
All right.
Very useful. Very useful.
And rumor has it the Tiger Shark LMG makes an appearance in the mystery box.
Yes.
So that's coming up. And then Winter's Wail improvements?
Yes.
All right. Tell us a little bit about that.
So, Winter's Wail was at the top of the list to be looked at for improvements. And we took a look at it, and we really tried to rethink about how it works and how to solve some of the issues that occur with it. Like, you're running around and a zombie just randomly swipes you, and then it procs, and then you're just out of charges for a long time. So what we did is we changed it so that you only proc when you get hit if you're injured. So if you're not at full health and you get hit, it'll proc. So it's like, hey, you need it now because something's already hit you, as opposed to like the random one-off. And also, you recharge at the end of a round and when you get max ammo. And also, we looked at the recharge times, and it was pretty abysmal. So we changed it so that...
Get off the fence. Tell us what you really think.
So it charges like once. You get one charge every 60 seconds. So I think it's a pretty good upgrade.
All right. Also on the roadmap, we're looking ahead to the Labors of Hercules Gauntlet.
Labors of Hercules. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, Ancient Evil's not that long been out in the community. It's been a real pleasure to see how well that map went down. It's one that we're all very proud of. So a gauntlet for it, I mean, Labours of Hercules. There's been some discussion over how to spell labours, I've noticed on some of these things. That's the kind of British-American fight going on. But I don't know if we wanted to tease too much about that one yet, but it's a coming down the road. This has been one of the fun things to do with every one of these maps, is to introduce a gauntlet.
But that's not really the end of the gauntlet conversation. There's the hard mode gauntlet as well.
Yeah, just for me.
Just for you.
Especially just for me, because besides making myself physically sick doing the Alcatraz one where the controls are reversed because I suffer quite badly from motion sickness, people thought it would be a good idea. Let's make them even harder and test them on Craig.
Outstanding. So over the next couple of weeks during Spectre Rising, in terms of like what's going to be rolling out on the Zombies front, what are you guys most interested in having fans sort of get to experience?
There's so many things. I can't. It's hard to talk about one thing.
Make it a couple.
Okay. Well, there's a few other little tweaks we've made to Dead of the Night, and that one is
the nosy fart tooth. Sorry, that's what Gideon Jones called them. Nosferatus.
Yeah.
Sure.
They have been adjusted, shall we say?
Yeah. We got a lot of feedback about the difficulty of the map, so we've made some adjustments. We made the werewolves appear less frequently. Nosferatus, their spawn rate is reduced quite significantly, and also, it used to be that when you got the Sentinel artifact, the zombies would start running because we thought, hey, all the doors open, there's so much space to cover, they need to run so that they can get to you. But then we also have a lot of kind of defend type objectives, so that just made those objectives more difficult than they should have been. So we just got rid of that bit, and it's a lot nicer from the start until you get to PAP.
We're always balancing. Always.
Then there's also adjustments to the magic box. So now we keep adding so many weapons, it's just filling up the box, and it's hard to get specific things. So we've taken out some of the wall buys from the box, and also it's kind of messing with the power band of the box a little bit. So we've changed how the probabilities work in getting weapons so that they're more based on the original power bands, and also so you don't get like 3 Essex in a row. We've made it so that the duplicates are reduced quite a bit. So like when you get one, you won't see it again for a little while.
That's good.
Cool.
And one more thing.
Lay it on me.
Wait, what was it? Sorry.
Anywhere but here.
Please have mercy. Let's see. It was magic box. Oh, really important. Camos. Camo kill requirements.
Okay.
So, originally we thought, hey, people will be working on camos. You get random weapons and you just work on different ones. But, over time, people want to get certain ones to work on, and that's really difficult. So, by the time you get it, it can be later in the game, and then by the time you finish, you're not getting as many kills for that whole game session as you would have usually gotten. So we just decided to have all of the kill requirements for box-only weapons, so you can get your camos a lot faster now.
Very nice.
All right. Wraps things for zombies.
Almost.
And
yeah.
Scene? Anything else?
Well, I've just got to go and keep working on DLC 3 and 4 to conclude the Ether storyline. So I'm very busy with that, and that's all I'm going to say, John.
No big deal.
Exciting.
No pressure.
Yeah.
All right. Shortly, we will be joined by Mr. David Vonderhaar, and Matt Scronce will be making a return to the stream to talk all things Blackout. For now, I believe that we've got a little bit of Spectre video for you. Roll to this. With the launch of Operation Spectre Rising, there were some pretty ambitious updates to the Blackout map. And here to talk about all that and more on the Blackout front, we've got Studio Design Director David Vonderhaar and Matt Scronce.
Hello again.
Hello!
Back with us.
Matt has a beam that just follows him around everywhere, so we know where he's at.
You're much more energetic than Miles Leslie.
Ah, that guy.
All right, so
I'm having fun already. We haven't even started yet.
take us into the world. So with Operation Spectre Rising, a lot of map updates, and it really kind of plays on sort of the wet works assassin theme. And here we go.
Who did this? Whose idea was this? I gotta tell you, man, when they pitched this idea to me, I was like, deep breaths, don't overreact, it'll be fine. Just give it a minute to sink. And it turned out okay, and it's really crazy. It was a lot of fun, especially tying the narrative to it, right? It was really interesting, all the tech challenges that we learned along the way. I mean, just when it seems like a seemingly simple idea that can go awry. So obviously we blow up the dam. We have all this swath of destruction. This is one of my favorite places to drop, so it was very painful for me to acknowledge. The water level's high everywhere, so you can sort of see all the carnage that this causes. Pardon me, bad navigational skills. All the way down, all the way through this whole section, blowing apart bridges. Where did the factory go? Down further?
So with the water coming through the dam, with elements of the map being flooded, talk about
elements. Look at this mess.
Talk about how gameplay has been affected by the flooding.
So I'll give you one, and then I'll let Matt do the other. I mean, the main thing is, like, you have rule sets, you have ideas that have to be enforced about where items are in the world, how far apart those items are from each other, how dense they are in every structure. And when you take water and you just go, there's water everywhere now, all those rules just puff away in a brief flash. And then you have to kind of go back through and figure out how are you going to compensate, right? Because running around in the water is what they, folks are already joking, the splishy splashy, right? So you have to move all that stuff into positions, and where is it going to be now, and how are you going to find the items that you need to survive in these destinations, and all these kinds of questions about what happens, when you're in this kind of environment, moving everything up and off the floor, finding homes for it. So that's just the itemization. I mean, that's just like the core component of the game, right? Already, just go ahead and light that one on fire and figure out what to do with it next.
So talk a little bit about sort of vehicular gameplay. How does that, because that's one element of how you engage the Blackout universe.
The boats in particular.
Yeah, so if you were able to see the gameplay trailer, you probably saw some boats zipping around, for example, the farm area, where traditionally boats do not go. So like Vaughn said, with the, raising the water levels affecting item distribution and item density, that also affects where vehicles can and cannot go. So water vehicles like the boat, you're going to be able to go more places with those. And in some places, you may not be able to go with a wheeled vehicle like a muscle car or ARAV, where you were able to go before. And then on top of, just the outside of vehicular gameplay, you're going to be able to hear the splishy splash of the footsteps a little bit better. So there's going to be a lot of things that change with this that you may not be immediately apparent.
Where you want to go and what you want to do and how you want to go about that, which is a really big deal. I thought it was really interesting in this particular case, for this particular vision that the team had on the map, was usually when you put in something like, say, Ghost Town or Hijack, you're like creating a location where people want to land and drop. Here, you're creating a location that some people are going to embrace highly, right? And others are going to be like, I'm not going anywhere near that disaster zone because it's just So that's a really interesting take to like negative design, right? A reverse, like sort of take this thing and then carve out this spot where certain types of people are going to get pressed to the edges and not be anywhere near this and not want to have to come across it. So the gameplay that this offers is both on both sides. It's not just here's this new location that you want to drop, but here's this whole swath of experience all the way down through the map, right? We haven't done that. We haven't said from here to here, let's change all of that. It's been here's this destination, or here's that destination, or here's these new supporting structures. So it's a different take on how to update the map that, as absurd as it was as an idea, is really interesting in execution and practice.
So take us inside some of those sort of design discussions about, especially whenever you talk about sort of the,
I don't have the sword on me.
The randomness of dropping in or the collapse. You know, because it's like, you know,
Oh,
you were talking about how
You don't want to be on the wrong side of the river, on the wrong side of the flooding necessarily in a collapse state, or you do because you have the vehicles.
But you said, like, you know, some players might be like, I don't know about that, but
that's perfect.
maybe they don't have a choice.
Yeah. So I mean, if you look at the map, I mean, I'm not going to say this thing cuts the map in half, but it almost cuts the map in half. It's close enough, and especially the flooding cuts the map in half. So that flight path, there's just new dynamics to pick, right? If with that flight path in that circumstance, depending on my play style, I'm probably not east and south of the water, right? If I like to be on foot, and I don't like to move around the map a lot. So it's just, you know, if you look at sort of all the mechanics that go into this type of game and a battle royale game in general, but Blackout in specific, and you do this kind of thing and you see what kind of impact this has, it's not just my impact in this moment in this area, but the totality of that and how you're going to play to win the game or not, and it's like makes it something special and different. I mean, it's pretty experimental on pretty many levels.
Yeah,
right?
the psychology of it, which Vaughn was alluding to, of some players may not want to drop in the flooded areas now, and if those flooded areas were, you know, perhaps a hotter drop before, then the psychology comes in. The players that preferred a more quiet drop on the perimeter may start dropping towards the center of the map where the flood is, because that may wind up being a little safer drop, which is then going to push those hot droppers a little bit further out. So it's going to, you know, like Vaughn said, from the start of the match, it's going to change the dynamic of how Blackout is played.
Now, a lot of this flooding is, you know, not in a position where it's just deep enough where the certain types of boats can still go over it, but not deep enough where you can't traverse it, right? But it's still water, and it still has the impact that water has on you, especially that we don't generally like to put items on the ground in water that's only, say, yay deep or this deep. So you can still, you know, don't be fooled. It's not so much whoa, learn to drive. It's not so bad it's not so bad that you can't navigate the map, but it's going to change things apart for many people when you run into this kind of thing. And then also, you know, who doesn't love just, you know, running around?
The same goes for players as well, because we realize that, you know, being slowed down or being forced to swim too often could be frustrating. So the same goes for the players, like with the vehicles. A lot of those flooded areas are just going to be about shin high, and you're going to be able to sprint and move through them freely. You will have a bit more of audio cues giving away your position. You may want to pick up dead silence a little bit more often, but same goes for the players.
Vaughn, as you fly around, I know that the team has also been working on Bounty Hunter mode.
I need a sword.
Yes,
I need a sword. I need to show you.
Would have been awesome if.
Where's the sword?
Where's
the sword?
We're running the Bounty Hunter right now.
No, you're not.
You can kick off.
Yeah, here you do. Yeah, you do. No. Well, don't do that. What's that? That's not a complete sentence.
You don't want me to say the complete sentence.
Don't show the dev GUI.
Well, I'm not sure if we can find the sword in this mode.
No.
Because Spectre's sword, the Shadow Blade, is exclusive to the new Blackout game mode, Bounty Hunter. Bounty Hunter.
Can you guys try? Put that off and then see if you can load the game mode.
So, for each operation, we like to have a kind of a operation themed game mode.
Sure.
Obviously, for Spectre Rising, how do we incorporate Spectre Shadowblade, and Spectre Smoke into
live.
Blackout?
All right, let's go. Let's do it live.
You
ready?
Yeah.
I don't know how to sit right.
Okay. I don't know what we're doing.
All right.
Okay.
I don't know what you're doing.
We're gonna explain this game mode while the boys try to actually show you the sword from top to bottom.
So, like I said earlier, for multiplayer,
Yeah.
Spectre and the Shadowblade, it can be difficult to run around with a melee weapon in multiplayer. Okay, now extrapolate that out to Blackout.
Third person.
Yep. First problem that we ran into is, okay, how do we encourage players to want to play as Spectre with the Shadowblade in Blackout when there's so many long lines of sight, things like that? So first off, okay, how do we encourage that? Well, we, as with other things that we bring to Blackout for multiplayer or share across the game, we tune it specifically for Blackout. So if you are playing a Spectre in Blackout and Bounty Hunter, you're going to move a little bit faster. Actually, your move speed, your regular walk speed, is going to be the same as a normal player's sprint speed. And then we'll scale out from there for sprint speed. So I'll kind of take it to the top and set the tone for Bounty Hunter.
Okay.
Bounty Hunter is a game mode where you are tasked with becoming Spectre. we have messaging in the lobby to let you know that you cannot deploy as Spectre in this game mode. So if you have Spectre selected, you're going to want to or have to pick a different specialist or character because Spectre is the hero of this mode. For starters, it's going to be a quads game mode. You're going to drop in, and right from the start, when you wingsuit in, you're going to want to look for the purple beams, which are highlighting Spectre's Shadow Blade, the sword. There's going to be roughly 25 Shadow Blades in the map at any given time, and you definitely want to go to those purple beams and get that Shadow Blade as soon as possible, because you're going to be fighting 75 other people for them. Those people cannot have Shadow Blades. So inside from the start, the purple beams will be attached to what we're calling Spectre Stash. And that's another way for us to provide some benefits to Spectre to help compensate for this long-range battle space with a melee weapon. So inside Spectre Stash, you're going to find level 3 armor right off the bat. You're going to find the Shadow Blade right off the bat. You're going to find many of the recon and stealth related perks like Dead Silence, Paranoia, Awareness inside Spectre Stash.
Consider me adequately incentivized.
There you go. There you go. So you want to get down, find those purple beans, find Spectre Stash as soon as possible, and then when you grab that sword, you're going to transition from whichever character you deployed as to Spectre. We've got a really badass transition there that the effects team and our post-effects team worked really hard on for us. Transition, you are now full third-person Spectre. You are Spectre with the Shadow Blade.
So while you're only melee attacking, you have third person, you're in third person, you're third person peeking, the advantages are significant. So you're really trading this kind of fun power attack, third person, rotation camera. We don't do a lot of this kind of thing, right? We have gestures in third person, but in terms of gameplay, mixing and matching is a really good example of what we talk about. We say, hey, let's just kind of press on our own comfort zones a lot and figure out, right, how do people react to this kind of thing? It's one thing in one limited time mode specific to the operation that is Spectre Rising, right? It exists there, and you'll love it or you won't like that type of gameplay, but it's that kind of thing. So, sorry, you pick up the sword as Spectre and?
You pick up the sword as Spectre and you go just straight beast mode on people.
Yeah.
That's the end goal is to be the last surviving player or team. It's still within those rules of Blackout.
But what makes it Bounty Hunter?
So Bounty Hunter is, it actually came from an idea a long time ago from Black Ops 1 even, where we used to highlight the top player in a party game mode, say one in the chamber, with a gold dot on the minimap. And we've been trying to find a way to kind of work that in over the years, and with Spectre being the assassin, being the hunter, we found a way to do that. So for each collapse, we will select up to 3 targets to mark as a bounty. That can be a Spectre player, it can be a non-Spectre player. They will be the top players.
How do you gauge top players?
You will be, top players are the players with the most kills. So the top 3 players will be marked with a bounty for each collapse. If there are times at the start of the match where a player doesn't have kills or there's a tie, then we'll select from, we'll do a coin flip basically. So at all times you will have up to 3 targets marked as a bounty. Your goal, if you are marked with a bounty, is to survive to the next collapse. If you are Spectre, you will be able to see those marked bounties. Only Spectres can see those. So one of the 25 players with the Shadow Blade will be able to see an objective icon bounty marker over the marked target's heads, and you will want to go and hunt them down. If you can manage to take out a bounty target, you'll be rewarded with a supply drop right at your location, so you'll want to hang out for a bit. And if you're our marked target, you'll also, if you can survive until the next collapse, you'll be rewarded with a supply drop at your location.
Well, it seems like all of these things ladder up to not only adequately incentivizing you to go find the Spectre drops, but really kind of sort of promotes gameplay and action around those points, because there's a definite net benefit to
around 25 new points, which are, the sword itself will drive not only the primary destinations that people like to drop, you have the sword locations, that's going to be 25. And then once you have that and you're using that, then you're seeing who the top players are and where they are, right? So there's a lot of motivation to be involved with the sword and the gameplay. and you can just put the sword down if you want to go back to normal life, right? Or even just put it away and pull your gun out. You're not capped into this thing where you only can use the sword.
Sure.
You pull out the sword to be in third person. So I think the dynamics here will be pretty interesting to find out how people see this in the real world and what they do with it and how they learn from it. You know, it's just one more example of taking an operation, being inspired by its core thematics, and then doing something different, very different with that kind of thing, sort of stretching what Battle Royale really means, which I think is the thing that we've been having maybe the most fun with in the operational seasons.
Yeah, that was a small note that Vaughn mentioned is this actually came from playtesting. Our original goal was you are Spectre, you have the Shadow Blade, and that's it.
We want more people to have fun.
Right, we want people to have fun. We immediately kind of knew that being forced just to have a melee weapon in Blackout could potentially not be fun. I would argue that I only use the Shadow Blade when I become Spectre now, just because I see it as a challenge. But in playtesting, we played one iteration where you could pick up a weapon, say an assault rifle, SMG, whatever.
So good.
And then you can, so if you have that secondary weapon, you can switch from third person
I don't
Shadow
need to use
Blade.
guns in Battle Royale. I could just use my sword.
You can switch
in
to the
person.
third person Shadow Blade, and then when you switch back to your other weapon, you're going to be back in first person. So you can, if you don't feel up to the challenge, John, I mean Vaughn, I don't know, I don't want to call names.
It rhymes.
You can carry your favorite weapon that you may be able to find on the ground and switch back to that freely.
All right.
It's like the older brother you're glad you never had.
That's a good way to put it.
All right, a couple other things. Anything else on the bounty hunter front? A couple other things.
No, I'm sure there'll be gameplay on this from your favorite creator, no doubt, before you wake up. So I'm sorry that we couldn't show you the sword as a technical glitch here. We'll figure that out.
Ground war, fast redeploy, equipment, a couple other updates.
I know we've sold all of our time. Okay, ground war. All right, this one's good. Ready? 50 on 50 in Battle Royale in this mode. That's Ground War. Ground War is not 9 on 9 in multiplayer. Ground War for Black Ops 4 and Operation Spectre Rising means this mode, as you know it, with 2 teams of 50. So your squad is like a sub-team of a larger team. So half of you can always win now, right? Yeah. So it's playing a 50 on 50 Battle Royale mode is pretty interesting. It plays a lot like Ground War would, but with a lot of people. There's a lot of incentive to revive people who are on your larger team, not just your squad, right? And then the mechanics of that stuff, like medic and things like that, become a lot more important. You know who's on your team. Friendly fire is disabled because I know you're all griefers and you're going to shoot your teammates. Is that true?
Yeah, that is absolutely true. All of it.
No, I knew that. And it's something special, and we'll probably see that midway through the operation, give or take, right? For what happens kind of in the middle of the operation. It's the plan anyway. Don't quote me. You guys always beat me up when we're not exactly
midway has already, like, somebody's assigned a date to it.
I know.
Like,
fudge.
Right?
Yeah. Well, anything else about 50-50?
No, still
Ground
trying to
war.
nail down the details, but it's the baseline is 50v50. We've been working hard on the, how do we deal with the infiltration pass, the initial flight pass? How do we deal with
the 2 helicopter problem?
The helicopters? How do we deal with showing who is on your squad versus your larger team? So we've been working hard on that and having a lot of fun, and can't wait to put that one out there.
As we kind of wrap things up in the Blackout front, what are you guys most excited about people getting their hands on during Operation Spectre Rising?
Well, I got to tell you, I am pretty fascinated by how the universe will react to this idea of us blowing up the dam and raising the water level, and the impact that has, and then how do you get out of that? Like, I'm fascinated by what happens after that. Like, okay, now that we flooded the map, what does it mean when it's not flooded, and how do you restore it? And so I find the fascinating to, like, there's this little bit of storytelling. Hey, Spectre blew up the dam, and then we're, just sort of thinking about that and how that carries us forward, and how we move forward to the, with every operation. There's also an event that we haven't talked about yet, how those two tie together. I mean, we do not make things easy for ourselves.
That's true. That's true.
All right. Operation Spectre Rising, out tomorrow, first on PlayStation 4. Before we wrap today, just wanted to offer a couple thank yous. First, wanted to thank all of our guests today. David, Matt, especially Mark, for being such a good sport at being on his first stream today. Wanted to thank the studio communications group, Foxy, Ben, Steph. Wanted to thank Tommy on the boards. Wanted to thank Lee Staples for running audio. Wanted to thank Robert Sanchez for
Just
all
standing
things.
there.
Just really
Just
looking
standing there.
so good back there. It's a shame he's off camera. Rose wanted to thank Jay Purrier. Wanted to send out thanks to Activision PR, Legal, and Social. In particular, a special shout out to Art Services and Jared Castle in Consumer Marketing for having done the Lord's work to get that roadmap done. Took years off his life. About 2 weeks ago, Jared looked like he was like 22. Now it's like, you know, a hard early 70s. Poor guy. But the roadmap is done. That's the kind of sacrifice we're willing to make for you. Also, for those of you in the U.S., don't forget Sunday, May 12th, Mother's Day. Take a little moment, thank the woman that brought you into this world and can take you out. Anyway, also to my littlest man, Nico, for his birthday tomorrow. I've got another sort of proper list of thank yous, Vaughn. That's what's happening.
Right.
That's all we got. Thank you for tuning in to the live stream. Enjoy
Nico.
Operation Spectre Rising tomorrow.
Transmission offline. See you in the shadows.